I usually don't cry when I play games. It's the same with most media, honestly. Even when I love something and it makes me sad, I don't really cry. It's not because I'm not trying to, but I just don't. It's not that I don't feel the sadness, I'm just not a big outward, showy kind of person with that. Amori is where that kind of differs. Amori is something that I played a couple months ago, and even when I finished the game, I kind of just sat there for a while. When I look up the duet song later, I still feel that kind of sadness, and even when I'm getting the duet to use in the video, it's like, wow, it's something else. So before we begin with that, there's a very similar game called End Roll that I really like. It had some, well, a little bit of notoriety back in the day, but not enough in my opinion, so I want to say that I feel like it also handles some of these dream worlds. It is very different, but I think that it has like a different side of what's going on. It follows a boy called Russell who is a psychopath and is forced into a dream program to face memories and gain empathy. The game has the skill to make you feel for someone that you already know is a bad person right off the bat. I feel like it was one of the things that walked so Amori could run. I'll link it below. It's free on VG Person's website, and you can also get similar games like that on that website. There's also one called Fair Their City that kind of deals with an afterlife kind of concept. That's also available from the same developers, and I'll also link Manly Badass Heroes playlists of all of them. Also, you should check out Your Turn to Die Death Game by Majority. It has nothing to do with this thing, I just think that it's not popular enough and it needs to be more popular. It's better written than Danganronpa, and V3 has a horrible ending. Fuck you, don't at me. If your brain isn't screwed on today and you didn't realize it, yes, this has spoilers, and for everything, for life itself. Spoilers for life. Spoilers, you'll all die one day, you fuckers. Every breath is to count down. Some of the footage that I'll be using is from my buddy who streamed this game very thoroughly. I think he got almost all, if not all, of the endings for this and did a lot of the different ways that you can play this game. So that was very extensive, and I feel like I would not have found some of this shit if it weren't for him, so all of that is linked below as well. So this is Amori, the main character. This is his life. It's a void. He has a desk, a shelf, a sketchbook, a cat kind of just hanging out on the edge, and a diary that says the same thing over and over. Everything was okay. White space is barren besides this safe haven, and if you'll notice, the only other living thing, the cat, is just barely outside of the border of the room. If you go further, you just get sent back by one of whatever this is. Are these guys really attacking you or just keeping you grounded? Because maybe there's something out there that they don't want you to see. The door is also just on the outside. There's also a black light bulb, and you don't want to touch it because even in white space, some secrets exist that you have to keep contained. Suddenly, if you open the door, the world is filled with color, and a soothing, at first, tune replaces the other. It's a playroom, a surreal one, but still a playroom. There's a cat peeking down at you, and another cat-shaped hole. There's also a collection of odd things like this random tentacle, and a picture of someone familiar among a collection of things that might be there to remember them. There are 4 main characters. Aubrey, who is adorable and tough, Hero, who is talented, charming, and responsible, and Kel.
What are you, retarded?
I'm gonna say something to you right now that I've never said to another living soul in my life. And how you doing?
Kel is a good boy. He's like Ron, but like what Ron should have been. I do like him, but he's kinda stupid. These are your friends. They're happy to see you and invite you to see your friend's photo album. You collect 50 clams from the snake, which is the normal sentence that I just said, and come up in a forest with branching paths. Omori seems stoic, but we know that he is really having fun and he does care. He might not express this much, but it has to mean a lot to him. Kel and Aubrey also have a turbulent relationship, but they are friends. You can tell they care about each other, and that's really why they fight. You can also explore some of these areas, but you realize that you're quickly stopped because of Omori's fears. Water, spiders, loneliness. Every other path besides the one that you're supposed to go down right now seems to have something that just makes you stop. Something that you only catch a glimpse of before it vanishes into the water. When you go down the path you're supposed to, there's a playground with some interesting people. Look at the size of this lad. The friends that you're looking for are on the picnic blanket. This is Mari. Mari is also going to be the save point in the game. No matter where you are in the world, you can stop and save with the picnic blanket. She provides a kind of sanctuary, and you can tell that she really cares about everyone as well. This is Basil. Look at him. Look at Basil. I'm adopting him. He has a photo album and likes to take pictures in situ because of how natural it is to see everyone there. These are some true memories to him. After this, you can play hide and seek. This burly bitch, who I am sure is on her period constantly, like calm your tits, tells you that you have to play hide and seek. So Omori gets to seek, of course, and everyone hides in the stupidest places.
Honk if Thatcher's deed. Honk if Thatcher's deed.
Hero isn't hiding after all, he also got roped into exercise with the boys. Mari isn't playing. It's like when everything happens, she's there, but she's not really there. Her presence is constant, but she's always kind of contained in the blanket. When you go and seek Basil, you get a nasty surprise in the end. The massive lad, Boss, takes Basil because he got kicked out of the playground for being a cunt. It's here that we get the main mechanics of this fight. You use emotions as buffs here, and I found that Kel works best while happy. He can make Aubrey angry because she works best that way. Hero is kind of just default, I think. He can cook and heal but take some damage and is kind of slow. Kel can also annoy himself because that's a very Kel thing to do. Omori, however, is the one who functions best sad. And when you get items, everyone has those kind of playful, not really that bad type of items. But Omori has a knife. It seems to be starkly different from the rest of them, which is heightened by how he's just black and white in this colored world. No matter how happy things seem, Omori always seems a bit off, as if he's holding himself back. It's a reminder that he's the odd one out. Omori is the one that saves Basil, and Basil is so kind that he even cares for the people who may have done bad things like to hurt him, like Boss, because deep down he knows the goodness in them. Anyway, Boss becomes a tree.
And how you doing?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. Once you round everyone up, you're on your way again. Basil wants to show you his sprouts in his garden. He wants to be happy like a flower facing the sun. The lilies remind him of Mari, protectors. There's a sprout mole stomping on the flowers as well, so you get a bit more experience with the battle system. Aubrey says they're intelligent, but let me tell you, I played the rest of this game and I don't believe her. Hero is like a rose because everyone loves him universally. The gladiator is strong like Aubrey. Also, you get a bit more information on the emotions. Sad beats happy, angry beats sad, and happy beats angry. Kel is a cactus because he's a prick also. Hey, I know I described everyone as being super cool with the flowers, but I think these tulips are like you, Omori, because you're basic as fucking bulbous. There's this new mechanic of speech bubble type of things that are called follow-ups. You can press one of them if you have enough power to attack with another move or possibly heal as well. It's very unique. Why does Basil live in a shoe? We're almost there and he takes a picture. But while looking at the photo, Aubrey and Kel end up arguing and pushing Basil. Seems as much as Basil wants to look on the bright side, he always gets hurt. But that's okay. At least he says it is. Inside, Omori helps Basil put the photos back together because he has a very good memory. But there was one photo hiding away that isn't happy. Back in white space, there's a sound of a heartbeat. The light bulb is still pitch black, the door is gone, and there's only one way out. As you might have guessed, this is a dream world, and we just woke up in the real one. The character's name is Sunny, and I just left it as Sunny. I named him Taco in my first playthrough, but when I was actually coming back to record gameplay for this, I decided that that's not the best thing to do. It's not my fault that my go-to names are Taco, Breadwood, and Trash Queen. Sunny wakes up in a dark room. It's nighttime. He's been asleep for a while, and his mum is in the city setting up for the new place. The movers are also coming here soon to pick up boxes, and she didn't say they would need electricity for a little while longer, so the house is already dark. Kel, in the real world, has been trying to call us for a long time now, but we never really answer. So what's going on in the real world, and why is there a dreamscape? Sunny is pretty blank like a Mori, and there's empty picnic baskets to save at. It seems like Mari isn't home. There's apparently food, but the stairs are just... there's something wrong with them. So it's better to go back to sleep. When you wake up again, there's an eerie red light, and the stairs are way too long. Something wants to drag you down further, and there's also a knife on the stairs. It's clear that there's some sort of hallucination going on based on Sunny's fears, but we don't know exactly why he has those fears. The system here is kind of the same, but the attacks don't do anything, and the thing keeps smiling. There's also a voice that tells him to calm down, and he learns some new abilities, but it's interesting that the emotions don't really do the same thing here. There's a real steak knife in the kitchen, and also some steak, but it doesn't look that good. Don't put the steak in the microwave, come on now. So Sunny has to go to the bathroom and basically throw it up, so really he hasn't eaten anything for a while, it's implied. But there's a knock at the door. It's Mari. Afterwards, Sunny doesn't really have any other reactions to it, he just wants to go to bed. The room is eerie. There's these little animated segments that you've noticed that I've been playing, and honestly, a lot of stuff in the real world when it comes to nighttime is pretty scary. It's just off. There's a couple differences in white space now. For one, there's Hangman on the laptop, which is something that you have to collect keys for on the way, and there's also a map of Headspace, and you find that Basil has gone missing. Everyone had blacked out and woke up where you did, and you were missing at first, but you joined them and Basil needs you. He can't really protect himself, can he? The sunflowers, the ones that remind Sunny of Basil, are the first to wilt when you go back to his garden. There's also something off in his house, but Omori seems to be the only one who sees these things. When the things vanish, they leave cracks, and so do the keys. which make it seem like the world is slowly breaking and something underneath it, like that contained in the light bulb, is slowly coming out. They know that Basil would never really run off like this. He must have gotten lost in the forest somewhere or been taken by something. Kel asks his rock to help him find Basil. It doesn't work because Kel is stupid. There's also more bloody footprints to follow. There's a key in the water, but no Basil. He's not in the train station either. Reporting back to Mari, there's really no progress. However, Kel suggests the big fuck-off ladder again. Omori's scared, but Mari talks to him and tells him to calm down again. Burley informs us that the tetherball is missing, so that's an optional quest that also rewards you with a headbutt ability for Aubrey. It does do a bit of damage for Aubrey, but I think overall it's pretty good. I didn't really use it as much as I thought in the second playthrough though. Finally, the ladder to space must be conquered. It does go to space, actually. It's a very long ladder. What a thrill. But one of the things to note is that when Mari says that Omori should just conquer his fears, it's a very simplified type of way to get over a fear, and he seems to just get over it really well, so you might be thinking, that's a bit quick, isn't it? It's a bit odd that someone who apparently has a really big phobia can just get over it so quickly. Kel loses his rock, and the butt certificate is planted on this very pink and dusty looking planet. Welcome to Otherworld. Mari apparently made it up, God knows how, with a space-themed picnic, and Kel wants to be a pirate. There's also a very small centaur. He does nothing, I just think he's cute. Space pirates aren't that bad of a bunch after all, but they're all very sad and kind of out of the job since Captain Space Boyfriend became mysteriously ill. Inside, Space Boyfriend is in his bed and there's a keyboard that you can play. It's pretty interesting how Hiro can play really well being the oldest, and Omori kind of gives up and smashes the keys angrily. Kel jumps on the bed, but Space Boyfriend doesn't really wake up. He's lovesick, not just sick, and he's thinking about the mysterious sweetheart. His mixtape for all of his memories is missing. It must be in the junkyard, so someone threw it out. And guess who has to find it? Anyway, we have to go to the junkyard. Maybe it's in the junkyard because your music taste is trash. There's also this asshole who we yeet back to his parents. Omori can cut through cones and plants with his knife, but you have to switch to Aubrey to beat up some other shit. Kel also throws things, and Hiro just kind of is nice to people. Space Boyfriend's favorite planet is missing, and yes, I still believe Pluto is a planet, you can't tell me otherwise. However, the tape has already been found by another sweetheart fan called Rosa, who found the mixtape and won't give it back even though she says that it's shit and it's stinky. Mari also gives us stinky chicken that she found in the trash, and then we're on our way to beat the fuck out of Rosa. Of course she dupes us and we have to fight whatever the hell this is. I think it looks like what happens to my computer when I use Fit Girl repacks. Oh my god. Once that's done, Omori and friends have to help Space Boyfriend's favorite planet, Pluto, by pointing out an extremely obvious hole in the ground that he can hide in. Are you blind, Mank? The space pirates don't see him because they're stupid too and they just leave. Imagine keeping a sentient planet prisoner just because you want to stare at it. That is nightmarish. But he gives us fast travel, so it's okay. He also teaches Kel to flex. I need an adult. There's also a couple other things that you can do here. For one, there's this scarecrow that wants his crow friends back, and there's also this coffee girl. She doesn't really do anything for you, but I'd like to point out that this is one of the themes of this game, which is this kind of voyeurism, that other people are watching you or keeping an eye on everything, and it's as if they're secretly watching us. And when you think of the somethings, those dark things that appear that only Omori can see, it's like he's aware of them watching secretly, but no one else in this world is. So even if they're having a good time, maybe he's still thinking about who could be watching him at that moment, as if he's being constantly judged by something. When you get back to Space Boyfriend, you put the mixtape on. But Sweetheart had broken up with him, according to the rumor, so maybe this wasn't a good idea, but Kel plays it anyway.
Hey, you little piss baby, you think you're so fucking cool?
After the children kick his ass, he calms down and introduces himself. Honestly, what use is a space captain if some 10-year-olds beat him up? No one has seen Basil though. Aubrey cries and the space boyfriend gives her a train pass. Basil's flowers have still wilted when you return though. There's also a boy with his kite in an optional part of the world. If you disturb him, he tells you that he glimpses the void every so often in the sky. Even in this world, the void watches you. Once you return to the main path, however, The thing that looks like Basil is waiting and you follow him. Mari's cookies. Mari's cookies have much more love baked into them. I could eat them forever. We're still young. We should dream big, right? We turn up at another staircase. It can't lead anywhere good because there's no color anywhere. There's sheet music at the top and some of the notes have been scribbled out. There's also a noose. It seems like when stuff like this disturbs the world, the door vanishes in white space, and the only way out is to do something that seems very final. When Sunny wakes up, his mum is still away, and there's 3 days left for the move. He and Amori both always have the knife on him as if it's some sort of coping mechanism, but it's also a kind of branding. When you think of him, you think of the knife, and you think of what he could do with it. Kel knocks on the door, and you have the choice to refuse or to answer the door, but we're gonna go with the actual main game here. I'll come back to the other choice later. Kel is surprised that Sunny actually answered this time, but does want to spend time with his friend before the move. This is the first time in a long time that Sunny has come outside. He takes you to the hobby store, where there are remnants of the dream world's sources. The park and the rest of the real world isn't quite as magical as it seems. Hiro is away at college to be a doctor and is returning home soon. You stop at the park and see Basil, the real Basil. Someone stole his photos. It turns out that it's Aubrey who has changed. She's surprised to see Sunny but brushes it off because they're not friends anymore. Aubrey is really mean. This isn't the dream world anymore. And Sunny's knife has consequences. Basil also isn't as carefree as he is in the dream world. He's obviously really bothered by things, and one of them being his grandma is really ill, but he does let them walk him home. But Basil gets way too nervous and then blurts out that he wants them to stay. He reveals that his photo album was stolen by Aubrey when she attacked him, and he wants it back, but he can't really do it himself. This then leads to fighting the cringy gang. You find an idiot that fights this other idiot, and then you fight another idiot that falls out of a tree, and then he doesn't know, and then he sends you to this guy, this retard who calls himself the Maverick, who pays women to give him compliments. The other people who are trying to eat candy, and the massive lad, all to find out that she's in the church, like right next to her house. What is this, Shenmue?
No! Try asking Chinese people about Chinese.
Do you know any Chinese?
Sorry, man.
Aubrey naturally doesn't want to be bothered in the church, but she also really doesn't want to talk to you or Kel. She really doesn't want to talk to anyone that she used to be friends with. She admits that Mari is dead, and she's angry because she felt no one was there for her when Mari died, and everyone was dealing with it in their own way, but Aubrey feels like they didn't do enough. She's the one keeping the photos safe, apparently, which also brings to question what Basil was doing with them. She also says Sunny having the knife makes him a psycho. She doesn't really seem to understand what he's been going through when he shut himself away for those years afterwards. She wants to be in the church because of forgiveness, but as we find out, her father is gone and a lot of the townspeople judge her. She's becoming something else. Maybe part of coming to the church is her trying to atone for that in a little way. But it's also a sense of normalcy. She hopes being there will atone for who she is and the town will kind of accept her maybe. But the town just whispers about her and nothing that she does is really working. So she picks a fight with Sunny and Kel in the middle of church. Then, when she runs off, they find her house and salvage the album from the trash, giving it back to Basil and going into his house. The real-world photos have some minor differences, but also one of them showing that Sunny has a violin, but the pictures of Mari are missing. It's been about 4 years since Mari died, and when Basil follows you into Grandma's room, he gives you the album. Maybe the photos are just too painful. But he took photos of things that he was afraid to lose the most, and looking at how dark things have become after those years, I think he lost almost all of them. Hiro is also coming back the next day. Basil didn't know that Sunny was moving, and it seems to shock him quite a lot. Overall, he's been really nervous when talking to him, and there's something that they're both avoiding. He follows Basil into the bathroom. Just imagine for a second that Basil was just taking a massive shit and then Amori just walked in like a rude bastard. There's something behind Basil, around him, coming out from the floor. Sunny gets too scared. There's something behind Sunny as well, but he doesn't want to face it. It's also time to just leave. There's spiders in the house when Sunny is alone. They're also getting bigger, and the house is darker. The staircase once again transforms into something that's impossible to get to, when all Sunny wants to do is just go to bed. Once again, a voice tells him to calm down, and Sunny can finally go to sleep again. Back in the dream world, everything is as fine as it can be. This time, Mari gives us a talk about spiders in the forest, and we find out that Hiro hates spiders too. Looking for Basil is more important, so once again this apparently terrible phobia is just overcome really easily. Also, bullying sprout moles happens. Turns out they were carrying tickets to go see Sweetheart's shitty concert, and I guess this is what the gang is doing now. To do this, there's some tracks that need to be repaired, and this involves going into some spider forests. Sweetheart's castle is also a really vast area where a lot of sprout moles are making their home. You know how Aubrey said that they were smart? Yeah, I don't buy it. Sweetheart also is a mega thought, and she's been looking for a boyfriend this entire time because she broke up with Space Boyfriend even though he seemed like an okay guy, and she was looking for somebody who is perfect as herself. And then she tries to marry Hiro, which is weird because she looks like an adult and Hiro is a child, which I think means that someone should call the cops. But then he says no and you get thrown in the dungeon because she's entitled, and then after all of this she just decides that she's gonna marry herself. We meet this character who says that he's the true keeper of the castle. Sweetheart came when she was poor and alone and begged for riches, but as she keeps getting more and she's not satisfied, she'll realize one day that she needs to leave. And once she leaves, Omori can choose to come back to this castle, but that involves making a very important choice. Mari had mentioned something about there being a lost library that was sinking beneath the ground, and maybe it would soon vanish forever. This is the lost library that Mari was talking about. Since this is Dreamworld, there's a lot of memories here that you filed away, but the question is, why? Everything is compiled in here and there seems to be hundreds of different books, but there's only a few that you can actually read. So maybe the ones that are in those books are just gone already. It doesn't look like anyone's been down there for a very long time, and none of the books have been taken care of. But the ones that can read seem to be very bittersweet. One by one, they fall asleep on the car ride home. It was a long day at the beach after all, and everyone was exhausted, was the first to nod off, and then the rest, As the sun sets, head accidentally drops onto shoulder. A sudden jolt wakes him up and he doesn't dare open his eyes. He pretends to be asleep and steadies his breathing. He listens to the sounds of the road. He feels the soft sun resting on his skin and the slight tinge of pain on his nose from tomorrow's sunburn. He's happy. Very, very happy. And he makes a vow to himself that no matter what, he will remember this moment forever. A puddle of juice sinks into the carpet. Hovering above it is none other than holding an open juice box. He looks around at his friends, who are all wearing the same face of disappointment. He lets out a guilty chuckle. In what seems like less than a second, disappears out the front door. A tiny black kitten makes her way across the stain, leaving sloppy wet tracks all across the carpet. The face turns red and yells for, but is already long gone. Hands, some wet paper towels. It looks like they're the only adults here, and if they don't clean this up, soon the carpet is going to stain. They'll have to deal with later. This year, was lucky enough to get assigned to a seat next to a small window. Every day during class, he would gaze listlessly through the opening, to the shadow of trees and the clouds creeping overhead. His mind drifted elsewhere, into his own world, his own stories, his own adventures. Has a habit of doing this. It's easy for him to get lost. Today was the same as any other. Stared vacantly out of the small window as the clouds passed one by one. Suddenly, a hand playfully slaps his back, snapping him out of the reverie. Looks away from the opening. Smiles. He motions that class is over and it's finally time for lunch. It's pizza day today, and they need to bolt for the cafeteria before it's all gone. Stomach growls. He looks at the small window one last time. He would have to continue his adventure another day. It's sunset. A strange statue watches over a hidden lake. It might have meant something significant in the past, but time has made its engravings illegible. Either way, it doesn't matter to the company visiting it today. They're only here to use it as a diving board. The brothers take turns jumping off the statue. Jumps first, then again. The brothers eagerly urge to join them, and after some careful thought, warily agrees. Shuffles up to the statue and looks down at the moving water. He can hear his heartbeat. His legs feel as if he could give out at any time. He tries to focus his breathing. He feels something crawling on his shoulder, and his eyes fly open to meet those of a black spider. In an instant, loses all sense and hurls himself into the lake. Water fills his nose. He exerts his limbs, but the water is stronger. He's too weak, too helpless. Or that is what he believes. Shuts his eyes and waits for the brothers to come save him. It was a hot summer day, and all could think about is why they couldn't do this tomorrow. The backyard was a mess, planks of wood strewn about the area. Paint stains splotched the grass, thanks to work. All day, watched, lug planks of wood back and forth from his dad's pickup truck. He watched, hammer his fingers over and over, and made a note that an hour had passed since climbed down her ladder. I'll just be their moral support, thought, as he sat sleepily in the shade of his favorite tree. Of course he knew this wouldn't be the case. Soon his friends would be asking for his help and he won't be able to refuse. The treehouse is for everyone, so it's only fair that everyone had to put some work into it. Knows this and agrees, but reluctantly. He slides up and wobbles his way to the mess. He knows he should put in his fair share. It just had to be on the hottest day of summer. Everyone is over again today. A special occasion on Saturday morning. From 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. a group of 6 friends eat a delicious homemade breakfast, watch TV together. It's the most enjoyable part of every week. Looks at the clock. 8 a.m. 2 hours left. He'll be able to watch with everyone else until 10 a.m. when his tutor arrives. Grimaces. He thought it would be a rewarding hobby, but it's nothing more than a nuisance. Instead of watching shows with the rest of his friends, he'll be the only one to miss out. If only he could watch the last hour with everyone else. If only he didn't have to play the violin. Basil stands by the piano, but vanishes when we get closer. The word Amori is etched into the surface. In the real world, Kel is knocking at the door. It's noon. He wants Sunny to come along and help shop for things when Hiro gets home around dinner. Basil is really nervous, also declines to hang out today as well, which is odd because they were such close friends and Sunny is leaving soon. They find Aubrey's gang in the pizza place, and the gang luckily doesn't spot them. They're planning to go to their secret hideout. On the way back, Basil's voice is coming from the old hangout spot behind the trees. The gang is being confrontational. Actually, more than confrontational, they're just harassing him at this point. Aubrey is in the old spot that the friends used to hang out at, and she says that she's moved on from them even though she really hasn't. As the rest of her gang leave, Aubrey has to really face this now. She pushes Basil into the lake and takes her anger out on him about something. Sunny has to jump in, and the water comes out to grab him. Thankfully, Basil is okay, but they need to take him home. They leave Aubrey behind despite her protests because really, she's done enough damage today. Kel tells Hiro about everything that happened and he finds it hard to believe because he's still holding on to that idea that everyone can be okay. Looking through the photo album, Mari isn't in any of them. Then it's time to spend the night at Sunny's house because really, it's not really gonna be a possibility after this. After reminiscing in the darkness and finding the piano, you find out that Sunny hasn't played violin since that day, and the song that they used to play is something that hasn't been heard since. Hiro also wanted to be a cook, but his mom decided that a doctor was better, but also the idea that Hiro probably was given a lot of recipes by Mari and maybe it's too painful now. This time, no one is there for you in the dream world, and you can even play hide and seek by yourself. Mari comes up to greet you, and she keeps you company while you look for everyone else. Because Omori hates being alone. The water reaches out, and Mari again says that Omori needs to be strong. This is Mari's stop. She's lonely without Sunny and needs to go back. Hopefully, Sunny is still there inside Omori. This is the new area. There's lots of gators and very grumpy ones at that. Kel is also there, saying everyone got tricked into getting jobs and signing contracts, so they've disappeared, but Kel is Kel, so he got fired. Kel says that they need to quit and get back to the playground, because growing up is bad. Mari has to also remind them that they need to find Basil after all of this because it looks like his memory is fading. The last resort is a very cynical place. There's lots of casino areas, mean gators, and threatening atmosphere. A lot of people come here to get away, but sometimes they don't come out, and they're also spending all of their money. Kel gets a key card, and Hiro is apparently Employee of the Month because Hiro is perfect. Aubrey is a receptionist, overworking, stressful, and asks to do everything even if she can't even do one of those things. It takes some convincing, but she does want to quit. They also can't leave without Hiro, of course. And Hiro is the one that the owner, Mr. Jorsam, doesn't want to leave without a fight because he is the ultimate employee. He also made them sign contracts that make them work for him for eternity without pay. This is clearly what Sunny thinks jobs are, but it's a very juvenile view because part of the dreamscape is this sense of age regression, going back to the point before Mari's death, and everything that he thinks is kind of in that view. But of course, a lot of the stuff in reality is coming out to interfere with these thoughts. So Mari sometimes is kind of a reminder that he shouldn't be doing this. But he doesn't really want to listen to that version of her. He only really wants to listen to the one on the picnic blanket who just keeps him safe. Also, something that I ended up accidentally finding out is if you focus all of your attention to not really killing any of the gators yet, just make them very weak, you can use one of the follow-ups, or you can use Kel's ability where he damages all enemies first so that they die, and then everyone else's attacks that follow Kel's end up damaging Jossum, and you can do this boss fight in like a minute. I didn't even realize that, but it was just way too quick and I was wondering why. And then I figured out that that was something that you can do as a strategy, so that's some accidental advice. After all of this, Hiro rejoins the party and they can leave and look for Basil if they remember. They actually try remembering what he looks like, but they can't. They don't even remember why they signed the contract to work, they just did. Deeper well is waiting for you. All memories will eventually fade, and people will move on, and these things sometimes make their way deep down. The gang needs to hurry before they forget Basil for good. This ocean area is a very long part of the game, and some parts of it are a little bit tedious to me, but overall it's okay. I especially like the really dark, deep sea type of theme because I think the deep sea creatures remind me a bit of aliens and I like them. There's also a lot of information about Sunny's dream and how it works, and the fact that he knows time moves forward and he has to wake up eventually. There's also talk about a cycle, as if every time this happens Basil will go missing and you need to find him. There are 3 favorite things that Sunny, the dreamer, uses. 1 has acted against him and is too wise, so they were banished. You can't even reach them in this route. 1 is very old and hides away, and 1 is a big yellow cat that watches the playroom. There's also a whale here. 3 sea witches were banished inside the whale, as well as Sweetheart, who's going to use them to make herself a lover. She's making them work for her with a promise of money that we know she probably won't give them. And the whale opens his mouth for the next area. The first thing is a bomb puzzle, which is one witch is using to attack her sister, which seems a bit interesting. Puzzles for the bombs don't take ages. The teleportation is a little annoying, but the thing that I really don't like is when you have to go to each Humphrey and say that they need to join to build a bridge. It's kind of annoying because I just keep wanting to skip everything. I guess that's more just me being impatient, but I did find it a bit tedious. All this time, the witches have been working on Sweetheart's robot girlfriend. She says that she's so perfect that she wants to fuck herself, essentially, but she keeps storming off and doesn't pay them because they apparently keep fucking it up, which is also because she has impossible standards and she keeps bugging them before they can actually do any work. Even when there's a perfect rendition of her, she says that nothing is more perfect than the real her and storms off again. Firstly, you storming off while saying that you're storming off will never make it a cool storming off moment, and secondly, why did you even ask them that? She ditches them all and says that they should get payment from Amori and friends, who they decide to beat the shit out of while the whale just kinda hangs out. Apparently the witches are basically under a lot of pressure from Humphrey because he eats money, and if they don't have money from him then he's gonna eat them. This is also a kind of 2 boss area as well. One of them is the witches, and then Humphrey decides that he's still hungry and he wants to eat you too. However, once you get out of here, everyone's forgotten Basil. The hangman is also very close to being complete, and once you complete it, there's something very ominous going on in Basil's house. There's also a hole where the crack was before. This area is darker and empty. There are a few voices that tell you that the truth can't be avoided as the water rises. Basil and Mari always find the truth and fly too close to the sun. The world he's holding on to is fragile, and with each cycle, it's always threatened. It will end in one of 2 ways. Either Sunny ends it himself and goes back into the real world, or it ends with Sunny as he makes a bad, permanent choice. And you can't hide from Basil's house or what it has become any longer. Each room here is full of very broken things, but at least the creatures here can see who you really are. You're also greeted by that version of Basil telling Sunny some things that he really doesn't want to hear, and speaking very personally about that event that we keep thinking we understand, but we don't really know. What really happened to Mari? The world that you created above this one, did you make it to protect this place or hide it away? Either way, it's becoming more powerful than you. When you hid the truth, you sealed a part of me away with it. He's been waiting for someone to save him all this time. On that day, when you became nothing, I was split in half. Which one do you think was more painful? When you really find happy Basil, he's been growing watermelons here this entire time. And he really prefers being at his old house with his other plants. You can't save him this time. Our friends who have suffered because of us, can we really call them friends? No matter how much I want it, things can't go back the way they were before. But why does part of me still cling on? Is there still hope for us, Sunny? I miss you, Sunny. You were always someone I could depend on to listen. My problems, my hopes, my dreams, you knew them all. So if you're there, please let my words reach you one more time. Back then, I wanted to save what was left. But even after everything, you left me, Sunny. I waited so long for you to come back. Even seeing you now, it's hard to think straight. I can feel my heart hurting and I want to cover my face and hide. There are many things I want to say to you, but the words don't come out. I just waited so long for you to come back, Sunny. But you never did. For so long you kept the truth shut out, but something made it slip. And the hole that it made, it won't stop spreading until you find the root of it all. The one that has seen the truth. Will you guide me to him, Sunny? Once going through the red door that's unlocked, there's one more chance to save Basil. Sunny, the truth is here. You've been running from this for too long, but this time we can face it together. Mari is waiting in the piano room. You never did finish that last recital even though you were practicing for it too much. Mari would lock herself away practicing, all for something that she died before she could finish. Hiro comes in after hearing some noise. He then cries while thinking no one is there. In the morning, Hiro did all the chores and made breakfast, and Kim comes over saying that Aubrey is a mess and they couldn't talk to her, so maybe we can help, even though she really doesn't like that idea. Aubrey's house is covered in trash. Aubrey is a very angry and defensive person, and she always kind of has been, but her dad leaving her, and it looks like her other guardian completely neglecting her in this house, has made it even worse. Kel gets confrontational about how she pushed Basil, and they argue once again. She kept those photos of Mari, and she felt like she burned those bridges, is relieved that Sunny picked them up. Apparently Basil was the one who scratched out those photos with Mari in them, and Aubrey has been trying to clean them this entire time. You can see the photos, and they show Mari almost in a relationship with Hiro, and it reveals a little bit more about how she interacted with everyone else. It was kind of like she was a sister to all of the younger kids and not just Sunny. Aubrey finally apologizes, and they invite her to join the party again. You can also stop at Mari's grave and put flowers on it. Before meeting up with Aubrey, there's this really interesting conversation that Kel has about how he was really sad and he thought that Hiro was somehow making himself cope with it better, but Hiro exploded at him one day and they both started crying. But when his parents decided to check up on them both, they completely ignored Kel and just focused on Hiro. So it seems that because Hiro is usually kind of dumb and carefree, when he does get serious, it seems like no one really believes that he can be serious and they just think that he's gonna be okay. And he kind of forces himself to be okay because that's how people perceive him. And he ends up being neglected because of this. There's this kind of idea overall about people who are known for a certain character trait kind of becoming a caricature of that and afraid that they're gonna lose everything else, or being pressured to lose everything else that makes them who they are. No matter how you look at it, Basil is always said to be caring and sensitive, and that he always sees the bright side of things, and even when he really doesn't want to, he still holds on to those traits because he thinks that everyone is just pressuring him to be that way and they don't really want him to act all the other ways that he can as a complex human. Aubrey also just embraces herself as an angry person because she doesn't know what else to be, and everyone kind of knows her as an angry person anyway. Hiro always puts on a smiling face even when he's just suffering and he ends up exploding at people. Kel has kind of completely forced himself to forget any of the bad emotions that he has because he feels like no one really wants to take care of him when he's not carefree. When you stop with Aubrey at Mari's grave, she reveals that she has been there a lot of times, and she feels kind of angry that no one else has been. And instead of trying to understand that, she decided to get angry again. Only now is she realizing that that wasn't the best move. Basil is currently in the hospital visiting his grandma, so in the meantime everyone goes back to Sunny's house and finally venture into the backyard. The tree has been cut down after Mari was found there hanging from it. Everyone was really busy that day, waiting for Mari and Sunny to do their recital that never happened. The backyard looks like it hasn't been tended to since then, and no one had wanted to come back to the treehouse because of the trauma. It's like the dream playroom, but more decrepit. There's a lot of memories, Hiro's cookbooks, Mari's old softball stuff before she injured her knee, and it looks like Aubrey looked up to her and decided to take on the mantle of using that bat. Sunny finds the photo that they missed and takes the key from the back before everyone else can see it. This photo is one of the only ones that shows everyone together smiling, as if it's a symbol of how things used to be and it needs to be both protected and hidden, because it's too painful. In a previous segment, Sunny's dad had said, "You're not my son," earlier, and perhaps it's because Omori isn't his son, Sunny is, and Omori is the one who's taking over in the dream world, and he shouldn't be taking over in real life, but maybe he will. Aubrey says that she didn't realize everyone was dealing with it in their own way, and she was scared and angry that life was moving on as if Mari never existed. This is why she lashed out. She tried to talk to Basil, but found out that he crossed all of the photos with marker, so she took the anger out on him and started bullying him, so everyone started doing it. Everyone talks about their guilt and apologizes. Mari had saved Sunny from drowning once, and that's why they stopped swimming at the lake. It was a close one, but that's why Sunny was afraid of water. She seems to have saved Sunny a lot of times before, and that's why Sunny is so guilty about what happened. They go to see Basil, but he's not talking to anyone or opening his door. They each try talking to him through the door, but he doesn't come out. I think when Aubrey tries apologizing and he doesn't respond, she must have been wondering if he'd ever forgive her. I think what he was really waiting for was to hear Sunny's voice behind that door, but since Sunny didn't say anything, he didn't come out. I think that he was preparing to make all of his pain go away in the only way that he thought was possible, and that was all based on whether Sunny would come to save him or not. I also wonder how many times Aubrey wished that she or even Sunny died in place of Mari that night, and if things would have been better for everyone else that way. Once everyone has a heart-to-heart and talk about connecting and keeping in touch when Sunny has moved, it's time to go to sleep again. This time, you're back in white space. But the room is already occupied by Amori, and Amori is now a different entity to Sunny, an embodiment of things that Sunny doesn't really want to be a part of anymore. And the only thing that you can do is smash the light bulb. Something that looks like Mari is gently swinging in the wind. After smashing an actual light, it takes you along a more colourful area where Basil is waiting by a tree. He says that the truth will be hard to accept, but you have to do it, and you have to put them together in the photo album. There's a bunch of memories here, and photos that you have to collect. There's a lot of darkness, and everything feels very empty. When things aren't dark, they're lit by this very violent red light, with a lot of things staring at you from the shadows. Before we get to the next part, there's some very meaningful things that I want to point out, or at least my interpretation of them. White space only really exists for black space to be contained, but it still reminds you of its existence in the light bulb. You also get an eye patch for Sunny from Space Boy, which is something that you'll see is foreshadowing for the very ending. When you make Amori sad in the battle system, the violin plays, which I think is kind of cruel. When Aubrey pushes Basil into the lake by accident, there's a memory of Sunny almost drowning, and I think that there's not only some parallels here, but also parallels to what Sunny did when he pushed Mari down the stairs by accident. Someone gets angry and pushes a loved one to their death, then realizes what happened and doesn't know how to move on. Basil was saved here, but Mari wasn't. How do you think that Sunny felt watching Aubrey push Basil into the lake and remembering his mistake? How do you think that Aubrey would feel when she realizes the truth of how Mari really died and remembers that she almost killed Basil in the same way? There's also the idea that Mari's death, it seems a bit odd that it would go unnoticed if she has all these wounds from falling down the stairs, yet she had been found hanging. So it seems as if the parents really knew that Sunny had been the one to push her, decided to keep it hush-hush, and the father couldn't take it, so he left, and the mother is kind of letting Sunny isolate himself and discouraging him from going to the outside world, both as a kind of punishment for him and also to protect him from himself and from others. It's as if she is both trying to protect him because he is the only child that she has left, but also tries to make him atone for his crimes and by punishing him in tiny ways, and also hoping that these tiny punishments will somehow cancel out what she considers a horrible idea of harboring a murderer that she's currently doing. Omori also means a weight, as one of its definitions in Japanese. Sunny kind of sees himself as not only a burden, but carrying a huge burden because of what he's done. Especially when he becomes Omori and finds it harder to get back to being Sunny. At one point, when you go to Hiro and Kel's house, the mom says you will always have a home here, Sunny. But what happens if she finds out what really happened that day? Hiro, especially, who was basically in a relationship with Mari, would probably find it the hardest to forgive Sunny, and Kel would be overlooked as usual, but he would be suffering as well. How would they feel once they knew this, and would Sunny still have a home with them? During some of the voicemail segments, the mom tells Sunny that if he doesn't get in contact with his friends, it's okay. So it seems like she really does kind of prefer it if he's locked away. Basil saying that he likes taking pictures when people aren't noticing that it's a picture being taken, and Kel says, so we just have to pretend you're not there? I can do that. Which is a kind of eerie feeling once you realize that they basically forget him throughout the game. When Basil needs to be saved from the hide-and-seek debacle, that is some foreshadowing for it. It's basically the rest of the game, but Boss never actually wants to hurt Basil. This also shows that nothing in Headspace can really hurt them at all, which makes it even creepier when things actually start hurting Basil. You can also meet the Daddy Longlegs in the forest, who tells you that this world is deteriorating with each cycle, and the more you do this, the more you will have to make a decision before one is made for you. From here, there are a few different endings that you can do after waking up. Going back to sleep is one, but no one is there when you wake up. Everyone is outside Basil's room, where he chose to deal with his problems in the worst way possible. Also, going home means that Sunny can stab himself with a steak knife because he realizes that things have gone too far. Or he can just move the next day, where the something continues to follow him because he chose not to sort it out after all. In order to set things right, however, Sunny needs to go and save Basil in real life. Basil has refused to blame this entire thing on Sunny. It was something behind him, like a demon, that possessed him and made him do it. He finally came back for Basil, but now he's moving away. And there's something all around them, but there's no way out. It was the something that ruined the photos, which also implies that Sunny was the one who ruined the photos and blamed it on Basil the entire time. There's also this idea that Basil thinks that he's fighting the something behind you, but really the only solution is to kill Sunny himself, and then because Basil usually kills himself in these endings if he's not saved, he would end his own life as well. After blacking out, Sunny has a dream where the cat leads him home. Basil meets him there as well. Normal Basil. Sunny shouldn't be bottling up this pain forever, and when he walks into the house, it's interesting because throughout all of this, things have been described in the second person, as if Omori is describing these things to Sunny, but Sunny finally gets his own voice back and talks about these things in the first person because he recognizes that he needs to be himself now and discard the Omori persona and the things that are weighing it down. After all of the happy memories from the photo, the violin in the toy box tangled with Mari's hair from her death is finally repaired and the stage is ready for you now. But there's something blocking the way just before that. You've caused so much suffering, yet you do nothing, and you've earned nothing in return. Your friends will never forgive you. They'll abandon you like you did them, and that's what you deserve. You tell yourself that you don't want to burden others, but the truth is that you're selfish. You don't want people to depend on you. When did you think about others? How long are you going to let people take care of you? You say you care, but you're a liar. You've never done anything for anyone else. You're useless. Less than useless, you're sick. People like you don't deserve to live. Your friends are wrong about you. The person they love isn't you at all. You let them believe in a lie to protect yourself. You're nothing but a liar, and when they see the truth, they'll hate you as much as you hate yourself. If they know the truth, you'll never be able to gain their trust, and no matter what you do, it'll be hopeless. All you do is make things worse. It'll be better if you die. You killed Mari. She loved you and you killed her. Hiro loved her and you killed her. Aubrey loved her and you killed her. Kel loved her and you killed her. Basil loved her and you killed her. You loved her and you killed her. You should just die. If you give up, Sunny disappears, and Omori is who he becomes in his real life as well. Without saving Basil, real-life Basil kills himself. And an interesting piece of dialogue happens when they find that Basil has killed himself. Why does this keep happening? Which is, yes, referring to them believing Mari killed herself and they were dreading this going to happen again the entire time, but also that Sunny and Basil are both the most sensitive characters out of all of them, so they're both the ones that are the most fragile and the most likely to kill themselves. So they were probably dreading that Basil would have done this at one point or another, and he does. There's also the Hikikomori route, which means that you don't answer the door to anyone and you basically stay in your house the entire time. You don't reconnect with anyone and none of the daytime segments exist. You start off by waiting for Kel to go away, and doing this means that you stay in your headspace more and it kind of defaults to you being taken over by Omori. Basil, during the start of the game in general, also starts on a picnic blanket. During the Hikikomori route, it ends with you saving him and placing him on this blanket. This makes you realize that Mari and Basil being on the blanket means that nothing can hurt them. Mari being on the blanket means that she doesn't die and she's safe from everything else, and Basil starting on the blanket means that perhaps there was a cycle where you saved him and left him there and then started again, which is where the game begins. And during this route you decide that you need to keep him there permanently instead of eventually finding your way out of Headspace. During the final night, you can return to Headspace and stay there for as long as you want to explore with all of the optional bosses, but eventually you do run out of stuff. Because really, Headspace can only last you for so long, and even repeating everything, it's gonna get more deteriorated over time. You realize this, but you just ignore it instead. You save Basil, catch him, and bring him home where everyone goes to sleep, because really that's all you can do. Waking up in real life means that you have to do your chores. The something is there the entire time. You can also take over Last Resort, Hiro becoming the boss, and get access to a room referred to in the game as Hell, where Sunny exists. So even when Omori is there to take over and make everything happy, Sunny is still suffering. Did he just leave himself there to pay the price for killing Mari, or is he just letting himself waste there because he has no choice? There's also a revisitation to an extended black space, one that has warped versions of your friends, like Scary Hiro, because if Hiro knew the truth, would he be violent towards you or would he hate you? Kel isn't even there for the most part, and Aubrey is just unapproachable in the physical sense but also in a metaphorical sense. Because Aubrey does have feelings for Sunny, and Sunny seems to reciprocate, but I guess they never talk about this stuff when they never get to talk in real life. Throughout the world there's also these tentacles. These are in all of Headspace and all of the different types of ways you can play this game, but only in this specific way of playing, you find something when you get all of the keys for Hangman and lose the game. This is the Abyss. Inside you find Abby, who kind of looks like Sunny or even Mari. This can be a lot of things, but Deeper Weld has described a wise one who was banished so far below that you don't even know how to get there. In the normal route you don't know how, but in this one, since you're spending the rest of your life in Headspace, you eventually figure it out. Maybe it's that shadow version of Basil who knew the truth, and maybe there was once a version of Mari who was the same before she became an empty shell on that blanket. It doesn't even remember what it is. Maybe it's even that part of Sunny that he banished because it was the part that killed Mari. but once you beat it into submission, it apologizes and uses the tentacles to give you gifts when you're about in the world. This entire thing is this painful idea that confronting everything and trying to connect with everyone is a bad thing, and you get all of these adorable segments with your friends, but it's honestly really creepy because in another game they would be cute, but in this one you know that Sunny is just going to die, Basil is probably going to die, and none of this is real. It really does seem like Omori, in all of the different ways of this game, adopts this stance of an abuser. He seems to think that you need to do everything he says and not act on your own because he's protecting you from yourself and the world. It's for your own good. And as soon as you step out of line and try to be independent or make your own decision, he says that you're a horrible person and you're not grateful for anything he's done for you. There's this one part where he reaches out to Sunny and saves him, but Omori is probably the reason why there was that whole cacophony of demons there in the first place, and Omori is just probably trying to put them there to prove a point that Sunny needs him, so Sunny might as well just give up. If you don't succumb in the true ending, you wake up in hospital and can go see the others. You want to make sure to water the flowers because only then does the something behind Basil and Sunny finally leave and they can smile at each other. Also, there's a confession that needs to be made. The key difference between giving up and pushing through is that Sunny realizes that he needs to complete something that he never did.